There's a kind of silence that lives in long-term relationships, not the comfortable kind. The kind that slowly stretches between two people like a thread pulled too tight, thin, strained, and always one tug away from snapping. That was us, me and Hannah. We lived in a condo we couldn't quite afford, in a neighborhood we didn't belong in. The kind where people pretended to be wealthier than they were. Leased luxury, dog breeds with Instagram pages, casual dinner parties that cost more than a used car. We didn't fit in, but we tried. I worked corporate IT. She was in event planning, mostly weddings. Ironic, considering what came later. We were good for a while. 5 years in, still laughing at the same stupid memes, still staying in on Fridays with Thai takeout and reruns of Parks and Rec. But then it started changing. Not all at once. Slowly. Like rot under a coat of paint. The first crack was her phone. She started turning it over on the table during dinner. Always face down. She never used to do that. Then she started sleeping with it under her pillow. Then came the late night texts. The "it's just my friend from work" lines. The way she always angled the screen away from me when I walked by. I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid, insecure boyfriend. So I said nothing. But I noticed. I noticed the perfume that wasn't mine. I noticed the gym clothes in the hamper even though she hadn't been to the gym in weeks. I noticed the makeup wipes on nights she claimed she fell asleep early. But the moment everything truly shifted was a Tuesday. Just a regular, godless Tuesday. I came home from work early. Surprise day off. Boss called it mental health appreciation or some other HR sanitized nonsense. I stopped for coffee. Picked up her favorite, oat milk, cinnamon, 2 pumps vanilla, no whip. She wasn't home. Her car was gone. But her purse was on the table, laptop open, shoes by the door. Odd. I figured she might have gone for a walk, but something felt off. I set the coffees down and sat at the counter. I wasn't snooping. I really wasn't. But her phone buzzed, and it wasn't face down this time. The message said, "Still thinking about Sunday night. Your mouth should be illegal." My heart didn't race. It didn't even pound. It just stopped. I stared at the screen, hoping it would vanish, hoping it was some inside joke I didn't understand. But then the phone lit up again. "Your man's still clueless?" And right then, I knew. I unlocked it. Yes, I know it was wrong. But what I found inside made wrong feel like a punchline. There were photos, not just NSFW, full-on exhibitions. Her in hotel rooms I didn't recognize. Her in clothes I'd never seen. With a man I had seen before. His name was Marcus. He was one of her vendors. A lighting tech for weddings. I'd shaken his hand, offered him a beer once. They'd been seeing each other for 8 months. 8. She wrote him poetry, called him her mirror. Said I was safe but boring. Said I never challenged her. Said she couldn't breathe around me anymore. And worst of all, she told him she was going to leave me after the holidays. Apparently, ruining Christmas wasn't romantic enough. I didn't confront her that day. I didn't flip the table. I didn't scream. Instead, I did something colder. I packed a bag. I took my passport. I grabbed my emergency credit card. And I booked a flight. Not out of anger, out of numbness. Somewhere deep inside me, a switch flipped. The part of me that wanted answers, gone. The part that wanted to fix it, buried. I left her a note. It said, "You were right. I am boring. So I'm doing something unpredictable. I'm disappearing. Enjoy your mirror." And then I left. Just like that. Closed the door on a half-decade of memories. Walked away from a life built on lies. And while she texted and called, first with confusion, then guilt, then rage, I was sitting at gate 12A with a one-way ticket to Bangkok. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know where I'd go after I landed. All I knew was that I wasn't going to die in the same city where I'd been cheated on. I was going to bury that man and find out who the hell came next. They call it the land of smiles. And it's true. The moment you land in Thailand, you're hit with it. The humidity, the chaos, the colors, and the smiles. Taxi drivers, vendors, random people in the airport. Everyone smiles like they've never had a bad day in their life. But I had 1,000 of them. And the worst part was, the worst one hadn't even happened yet. I arrived in Bangkok with 2 bags, one full of clothes, the other full of broken pieces. I had no plan, no hotel, no eat, pray, love fantasy of finding myself. I just knew I had to get out of Los Angeles, away from Hannah, away from everyone who knew what she did and what I didn't see coming. The first night, I stayed in a cheap hostel. $10 a night, one fan, two geckos on the wall, and a bathroom I tried not to think too hard about. I didn't care. I didn't sleep. Instead, I walked the streets. Let the noise drown out the screaming in my head. I ate fried noodles off a cart, watched tuk-tuks race down alleys, saw monks in orange robes laughing with school kids. Everything felt alive. Everything except me. The thing they don't tell you about betrayal is that it doesn't hit like a car crash. It hits like a slow leak. I didn't cry at the airport. I didn't cry when I saw the text. Didn't even cry when I left the note. But on my third night in Bangkok, and after a bowl of spicy soup I could barely taste, I sat down by the Chao Phraya River. And it hit me. This wasn't a vacation. This was exile. I wasn't a man on an adventure. I was a man who had been replaced, deleted from someone's life like a typo. I sat there until sunrise, just a guy in someone else's city trying not to come apart. I met Niran by accident. He was a tuk-tuk driver, mid-40s, sharp as hell, spoke better English than some of my co-workers back home. He noticed I looked lost. He asked, "You look like you ran away from something. You want to go somewhere that feels like nowhere?" I said sure. So he took me to a village 2 hours outside the city. No tourists, just farmland, dust, and a small cafe run by a guy named Lek who roasted his own beans and played old Thai blues. It was the first time in weeks that my chest didn't feel like it was being crushed. I went back the next day, and the day after that. Eventually, Niran and I started talking. He told me he'd once been an accountant, had a wife who cheated, lost everything, job, apartment, even custody of his daughter. He said, "Bangkok's where people come to forget, but the people who survive, they come here to remember who they were before the damage." I rented a cheap apartment, one room, cement floors, thin walls, and a hammock on the balcony. I read books. I helped Lek load coffee beans. I went days without checking my phone. And then one morning, a message popped up from Hannah. "Are you okay? Where are you?" I stared at it for 10 full minutes. Then I deleted it. No reply. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't even ready to be angry. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I needed either to keep breathing. One night, Niran handed me a flyer. It was for a meditation retreat up north. Quiet, remote, 10 days of silence. I laughed. He didn't. "You've already gone silent to the world," he said. "Maybe it's time to go silent with yourself." I didn't sign up that night, but I didn't throw it away either. I tucked it in my journal, between a page where I'd scribbled Hannah's name 100 times and another I'd nearly torn out. I didn't know it yet, but something was shifting. I wasn't trying to escape anymore. I was starting to transform. They say change doesn't happen in one big moment, but for me, it did. It came with a van, 12 strangers, and a winding road through the northern hills of Thailand. I took the flyer. I booked the retreat. 10 days. No talking, no phone, no books, no eye contact, just meditation, movement, and silence. Chiang Mai is a different kind of beautiful. Where Bangkok is loud and alive, Chiang Mai is watchful, like it's waiting to show you something, but only if you're willing to be still long enough to see it. The retreat center sat on the edge of a rice field, shaded by tall teak trees, wooden bungalows, communal meals, no mirrors, no clocks. The first day, we were each given a white cotton robe. We weren't allowed to speak from sunrise to sundown. And after sundown, we didn't want to, because something about the quiet was louder than any conversation I'd ever had. Her name was Samira. I didn't know that at the time. None of us spoke. We didn't even introduce ourselves, but I noticed her. Not in the way I used to notice women, not in a lustful or romantic sense. More like I noticed how still she was. She wasn't fidgeting. She wasn't pretending to be calm. She was calm. She moved like a river, slow, steady, present. I caught myself watching her once, not in a creepy way, just observing. She was sitting beneath a tree, palms on her knees, eyes half lidded like she was halfway between sleep and clarity. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing. The silence started working on me. The first 3 days were agony. My mind screamed, bargained, replayed scenes with Hannah in looped nightmares. But then something shifted. Around day 4, I stopped obsessing over the pain. By day 6, I was waking up without the weight in my chest. By day 8, I found myself smiling. Not big, not loud, but real. And so was she. I didn't know her name, didn't know her past, didn't know if she was broken or whole. But her presence was like clean air. Day 10, the last day of the retreat. We were finally allowed to speak. Most people rushed into the dining area, eager to laugh, to swap stories. But she didn't. She stayed back. I did too. We ended up sitting outside, under the same tree I'd seen her at on day 1. She was sketching something in a notebook. I finally spoke. I was starting to think you were a ghost. She looked up, smiled. Maybe I was. What kind of ghost watches over tired men on benches? The kind that probably used to be a therapist, I said, half joking. She raised an eyebrow. Close. I'm a grief counselor. Of course she was. And you? She asked. I paused. Recovering fiancé. She nodded, didn't pry, didn't react, just said, well, that sounds exhausting. We sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was comforting. We spent the next 3 days together. Nothing dramatic, no movie montage love story. We shared meals, walked through temples, traded stories under the lanterns of the night market. Her story was quiet. She'd lost her sister to cancer 3 years earlier, traveled to Chiang Mai to reset, ended up staying. She worked with expats, teaching breathwork and holding grief circles. Mine was messier. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. Some people understand your wounds without seeing the scar. She told me the Thai word for heartbreak is jat jai. It translates roughly to a tear in the heart. But she added, hearts heal, but only after they tear. I almost kissed her on the 4th night. We were watching paper lanterns float into the sky. She leaned into my shoulder. The air smelled like lemongrass and smoke. But something stopped me. A sound. A vibration in my pocket. My old phone. The one I hadn't checked in a week. A voicemail from an unknown number. I played it later. Nathan. It's Marcus. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but it's about Hannah. She's not well. She's been looking for you. I think she's losing it, man. Please call me. I didn't. Not right away, but I saved the message because somewhere, deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't over. Just as I was starting to rebuild, the past sent up a flare, and I couldn't look away. There are some things you don't expect to follow you halfway across the world. A postcard from home, a song in a cafe, a familiar perfume in a crowd, and then there's a package with your name on it, in handwriting you know too well. It arrived on a Thursday. Chiang Mai was in bloom, the kind of heat that made everything feel slow and dreamlike. I'd moved into a small house on the outskirts, rented monthly from a retired monk. It had a tin roof, a mango tree, and a rusted gate that squeaked when you touched it. Simple, peaceful, untraceable, or so I thought. The package was leaning against the front door. Brown paper, twine, no return address. But I knew. Even before I picked it up, I knew. Inside was a letter, folded neatly, smelling faintly of lavender, and a small black box. I read the letter first. Nathan, if you're reading this, I assume you found your way out of whatever hole you disappeared into. I didn't know where else to send this. Marcus gave me your old co-worker's name. I hope she passed it on. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I'm writing because I need to say what I couldn't when it mattered. You were good to me, better than I deserved. And I broke something I didn't know how to fix. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to have this. Inside the black box was the engagement ring, the one I'd bought with 2 months' salary. The one she said was perfect in the store. The one I never got back until now. I stared at it for a long time, long enough for the sky to change, long enough for a gecko to crawl across the wall like it was judging me. I didn't know what to feel. Gratitude, closure, anger. All I knew was that holding that ring felt like holding a ghost, a version of myself I'd already buried. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Marcus said in the voicemail. She's not well. Was that guilt, manipulation, or the truth? Did I owe her a conversation? Would it help? Or would it just let her break something else? I took the ring outside, held it under the moonlight. It sparkled the same way it had in the store, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a receipt for a future that never arrived. I didn't throw it away. I didn't keep it either. I walked 5 miles to a monastery I'd passed once on a hike, and I gave it to a monk. Didn't explain, didn't need to. He took it, nodded, said only, "Things only have power if we keep feeding them." 2 days later, I made the mistake of checking Hannah's Instagram. She looked thinner, tired, but not sad. In fact, she looked like she was living her best life. Brunches, beaches, girls' nights. The ring was never mentioned. The breakup never acknowledged. It was like I'd been erased. I closed the app, turned off my phone, and booked a train ticket to Pi, a small mountain town where the Wi-Fi barely works and people go to forget time. Samira came with me. We didn't talk about Hannah. We didn't talk about the package. We talked about everything else. Favorite childhood smells, books we hated in school but secretly loved. What song would play at our funerals? She told me about her sister, Layla, said she still talked to her when no one was around. I told her I talked to my past sometimes too. She said, "Then you'll understand why ghosts can be sacred, but also selfish." We sat in a hot spring that night, her head on my shoulder, and I realized something terrifying. I was starting to want again. Not just sex, not just companionship, something real. And that's when the message came in. The phone buzzed. A single email from Hannah. Subject line, "You win." I opened it. "I saw your little meditation retreat photos. I guess I was right. You always wanted a quiet life. I hope it's everything you wanted. I'm moving in with Marcus. He proposed. I'm pregnant." No greeting, no apology, no request. Just that. A digital punch to the throat. I stared at the email, not out of heartbreak, out of disbelief, because the woman who couldn't commit for 5 years was now engaged to the man she cheated with and carrying his child. It wasn't that I wanted her back, it was that she hadn't suffered. She got everything, and I got silence. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was broken, because something was rebuilding. Not grief, not jealousy, focus. For months, I'd let go, detached, healed. But now I was ready to respond. Not with a message, not with rage, but with results. She wanted me to lose. She wanted me to disappear. So I will. But not as the man she knew. I'm going to disappear. As the man she'll never measure up to again. Up until that email, I thought I was healing. Turns out, I was just hiding. The real healing didn't begin until I stopped trying to let go and started focusing on who I could become if I outgrew her completely. I didn't respond to Hannah's email, didn't block her, didn't curse her name into the Thai wind. I just changed lanes. That same week, a guy I'd met during the retreat, Felix, reached out. He was a digital nomad from Berlin. Smart, sharp, borderline annoying, but in a lovable way. We'd talked casually about remote income and freelance work back in Chiang Mai. He messaged me, "Hey man, you ever thought about teaching English or building a course? You've got that calm, I'm not mad, just disappointed voice. Thai students love that." I hadn't, but the idea stuck. So I started tutoring, online at first, English to Thai business professionals. Simple stuff, grammar, email writing, idioms. I charged low at the start, but it grew fast. I set up a basic website, branded it Voice and Verse, English coaching for clarity. Didn't even advertise, just word of mouth and one Facebook group. Within a month, I had 12 recurring clients, then 20. I partnered with a local co-working space and began running live workshops. Soon I had a waiting list. It wasn't flashy, wasn't empire level, but for the first time in years, I felt in control. I wasn't just surviving, I was redefining myself. Samira noticed it too. She told me, "You've stopped flinching every time someone mentions the past." I told her, "I'm not done flinching. I've just started ducking better." She laughed. Then more seriously, "What are you going to do if she reaches out again?" I looked at her. By then, I hope she won't be able to find me, because I'll be so far ahead of who I was. She wouldn't even recognize the man I became. Felix wasn't done meddling. He connected me with a contact of his in Bangkok, someone who ran a tech incubator for language startups. We met for coffee. He asked if I'd ever considered turning my lessons into a product, a course, an app, a platform. At first I said no, but then I remembered something Hannah once said. You're good at starting things. You just never finish. That night, I built the first framework. 2 weeks later, I was recording voiceovers in a makeshift sound booth made of blankets and egg cartons. I used the same voice I'd once used to calm Hannah during panic attacks. Now I was using it to build something permanent, a company, a voice, a brand. 2 months passed. Revenue was up. My name was starting to circulate in expat forums. I was invited to speak at a digital nomad conference in Saigon. Things were quiet. Until one night I got an email. Different tone this time. Hi, Nathan. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just wanted to say I saw your business page. I'm happy for you. Marcus and I didn't work out. The baby wasn't his. Long story. I'm moving back in with my mom. I miss you. I'm sorry I broke us. I stared at it for a long time, and I felt nothing. No hate, no pity, just distance, like someone watching a stranger's house burn down on the news. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, because it didn't matter anymore. I had a new rule. If it doesn't add to my peace, it doesn't get a seat at my table. And she'd already eaten and left the bill behind. I didn't block her, but I made sure she could see every win. My business website got featured in a travel article. My social media posts, public. Every new testimonial, every glowing review, every smiling student I helped. She saw it. She watched it. And she never replied again, because she knew she didn't break me, she released me. Some people get revenge by screaming louder. I got mine by becoming the kind of man who no longer needed to speak at all. You never expect your past to knock politely, but when it does, it's usually dressed in black. The email was from my sister. Simple, director. Dad passed. Funerals in 4 days. Mom wants you to come. Hannah will be there. That last sentence wasn't a warning. It was a lit match, tossed into the dry grass of memory. I hadn't been home in almost a year. Thailand had become more than a location. It had become a separation, a border between the version of me that was broken and the version that refused to be. But death doesn't care about progress. So I packed a single bag and flew home. Landing in LA felt like opening a wound you forgot was still tender. The air smelled like car exhaust and unresolved trauma. I took a cab straight to my childhood home, a beige one-story house that still had the same crooked mailbox and dying rosebush. My mom hugged me like I was returning from war. In some ways, I was. My sister said nothing at first, just looked at me like I was a ghost she wasn't sure she wanted to believe in. But I didn't come back to explain. I came to say goodbye. The funeral was small, quiet, the way Dad would have wanted it. He was a man of silence, worked with his hands, taught me how to patch drywall, change my own oil, and never take shortcuts. He also warned me about Hannah, said she had restless eyes. I thought he was being paranoid. Turns out, he was being right. I saw her before she saw me. Same honey blonde hair, same posture, half guarded, half performing. But something was off. Her eyes had that sunken, sleepless look, and for a split second, I felt bad. Until she turned, and our eyes locked. We didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there between graves with 1,000 miles of silence between us. She finally broke it. You look different, I nodded. So do you. You cut your hair. You lost your glow. The words came out sharper than I intended. She flinched. I deserved that, she said. You deserve a lot of things, but this isn't about you. She paused. Can we talk? We're doing that now. She followed me to the edge of the parking lot. I expected tears, a breakdown, some attempt at closure. Instead, she handed me a photo. It was us, 3 years ago, smiling on a hike, the last trip before everything started unraveling. I still carry this, she said. You shouldn't, I replied. I know I can't undo anything. I just wanted to say, you already said it. In bed. With someone else. Her face twisted. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head. You didn't hurt me. You killed me. There's a difference. Hurting someone means they still have a version of themselves left to rebuild. You took mine. I just happened to find a better one. She started crying. Not the manipulative kind. The kind that said, I finally understand. But I didn't move, didn't comfort her, didn't gloat. I just said, I forgive you, but I don't trust you, and I don't miss you. Are you seeing someone? She asked. Number, I'm becoming someone. I turned and walked away, didn't look back. That night, after the funeral, I walked through my childhood backyard. Everything looked smaller. The tree I used to climb, the shed where I snuck cigarettes as a teenager, the spot where I told Hannah I loved her for the first time. I stood there, alone, and I said goodbye to my father, to my past, to her. That night after the funeral, I walked through my childhood backyard. Everything looked smaller. The tree I used to climb, the shed where I snuck cigarettes as a teenager, the spot where I told Hannah I loved her for the first time. I stood there, alone, and I said goodbye to my father, to my past, to her. I didn't need revenge. I needed release, and I gave it to myself. There's a silence that comes after closure, not the cold silence of shock, not the angry silence of betrayal, but something gentler, like an exhale you didn't know you were holding. I returned to Thailand with no plan. Didn't go back to Chiang Mai, didn't check in with Felix, didn't call Samira right away. Instead, I booked a bungalow in a sleepy coastal town called Bon Krut, a stretch of sand where no one cared about resumes, revenge, or who cheated on who. My bungalow faced the sea. No locks, no schedule, just the sound of waves and wind through banana trees. It was the kind of place where people go to remember how to be human again. I didn't write, didn't teach, didn't build anything. For the first time in years, I just existed. I swam every morning, ate fresh grilled fish from beach shacks, watched kids fly kites in the late afternoon sun, and in all that stillness, I started to hear something I hadn't in a long time, myself. I noticed her on the third day. She was waist deep in the ocean, hair like dark copper, shoulders freckled by the sun, wearing a simple black swimsuit and a shell necklace, not posing, not performing, just floating. She swam like she belonged to the sea, not conquering it and rhythm with it. We didn't speak that day, but the next morning we ended up at the same cafe, wood tables, wicker fans, locals playing soft guitar in the back. She was reading The Art of Stillness by Pico Iyer. I laughed gently and said, "That book is dangerous, might make you stop chasing things." She smiled. "That's the idea." Her name was Elena, half Italian, half Thai. Her father was a painter, her mother a marine biologist. She'd grown up between islands, continents, and languages. Now she taught breathwork and body movement retreats for trauma recovery. I told her I was a language coach, left out the cheating, the exile, the old scars. And yet, she seemed to see them anyway. "You swim like a man who's trying to drown something," she said. "Used to be," I said. "Now I just like the quiet down there." Over the next 2 weeks, we fell into a rhythm. No flirting, no pressure, just long conversations at sunset, walks to the market, cold fruit eaten on the sand. She didn't ask for a version of me that made sense. She accepted the one that was still forming. There was a moment, a late swim, full moon, salt on our skin. We floated side by side, and she said, "Do you ever wonder if healing is just remembering who you were before someone told you were broken?" I whispered, "No. I think healing is becoming the person they could never deserve." And she kissed me, softly, like she wasn't trying to claim me, just acknowledged that I was here, still standing, still open. Over the next 2 weeks, we fell into a rhythm. No flirting, no pressure, just long conversations at sunset, walks to the market, cold fruit eaten on the sand. She didn't ask for a version of me that made sense. She accepted the one that was still forming. There was a moment, a late swim, full moon, salt on our skin. We floated side by side, and she said, "Do you ever wonder if healing is just remembering who you were before someone told you were broken?" I whispered, "No." "I think healing is becoming the person they could never deserve." And she kissed me, softly, like she wasn't trying to claim me, just acknowledged that I was here, still standing, still open. We didn't rush. There were no declarations, no social media reveals, no timeline, just consistency. She helped me rebuild my online coaching brand, added mindfulness modules, helped clients manage anxiety during interviews, helped me stay grounded when I started thinking too far ahead. We taught one workshop together in a beach yoga dome. It sold out. She called it the grammar of healing, said people needed to learn how to speak to themselves with better verbs. One night, I told her about Hannah. All of it. The texts, the betrayal, the exile, the ring, the email that said, "You win." She didn't flinch, didn't pity me. She just held my hand and said, "You didn't lose. You paused, and now you're playing a different game entirely." It wasn't about being chosen anymore. It was about choosing myself, and for the first time in forever. I wasn't afraid to be loved without conditions. It came through the contact form on my coaching site. No subject line, no formal greeting, just a name. Marcus. I stared at it for a full minute. Felt nothing at first. Then a slow tensing in the back of my neck. "Hey Nathan, I know this is weird. I've been watching what you're doing, teaching, the retreats, the voice stuff. It's impressive. I'm not writing to reopen old wounds. I'm writing because I messed up bad and I need help. Not money, something else. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Please." I didn't reply. Not at first. I sat on the beach that night, Elena beside me, fireflies blinking between palm trees like the universe was hesitating too. I read her the message. She didn't speak. Just sipped her tea and watched the waves. After a while, she said, "The past will always test your peace." "The question is your peace strong enough to pass?" I replied. Short. Director. "What do you want?" He responded in under an hour. "It's Hannah. She's sick. Not dying, at least not yet, but mentally, she's unraveling. She's been in and out of facilities, won't talk to anyone. But she asked about you, said if she could just hear your voice, maybe she could rest. I don't know what that means. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I had to try." I walked for an hour, didn't bring my phone, didn't bring shoes, just my thoughts, pounding against my ribs like waves against cliffs. She cheated, she lied, she tried to erase me. And now? Now she wanted my voice? Elena met me back at the bungalow. She didn't ask what I'd decided. Instead, she gave me something, a small ceramic shell she'd made. On the inside, painted in tiny brush strokes, was a single word: enough. I knew what it meant. Not enough, as in I'm done, but enough, as in I have enough in me now to handle this. I didn't visit, didn't Zoom, didn't FaceTime. Instead, I recorded a message. Simple, calm, free of venom or praise. Just this: "Hi, Hannah. You once said my voice made you feel safe. I don't know if that's still true, but if it helps at all, I forgive you. Not because you earned it, but because carrying the weight of what you did was never my job to begin with. I hope you find peace. I already have." I sent it. No reply. Didn't expect one, didn't need one. It wasn't about saving her. It was about proving she couldn't shake me anymore, that I was no longer defined by what she broke, but by what I rebuilt. Weeks passed. Life resumed. Elena and I planned a new retreat, not just for English learners, but for men recovering from emotional trauma. We called it Voice After Silence. Men from 5 countries signed up. We taught them how to breathe again, how to speak with power, how to own their stories without shame. And one night, after the final workshop, I checked my inbox. One message from a nurse. Just 3 lines. "She passed peacefully last night. Had your recording playing. Thank you for being kind, even when you didn't have to be." I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just stood up, walked outside, and stared at the ocean. Somewhere out there, a piece of me finally dissolved. It started with a podcast. A friend of a friend. Small audience, just me, a mic, and the story of how I lost everything. And didn't just get back on my feet. I rewired my bones. The episode was called After the Fire: How One Man Turned Betrayal into a Global Voice. I didn't name it that, but it blew up. Tens of thousands of streams, comments, emails, men saying they hadn't cried in years until they heard my story. I wasn't famous, but I was something. Voice and verse grew. We added modules. Elena designed an emotional literacy course. We were invited to speak at TEDx Chiang Rai. Our talk? Healing is not a whisper, it's a declaration. The response was massive. Sponsors, brand deals. A publisher in New York asked for a book proposal, and I should have been celebrating. But instead, I started feeling the weight. Because when you step into the light, people assume you have no shadows left. It came through Instagram, from a private account, no profile photo. I was there the night Hannah found out she was pregnant. You didn't hear her cry for 3 hours straight. You didn't see her panic. You don't know the full story. You just told yours louder. I froze. Not because I believed them, but because they weren't wrong. I had told my story, my version, not out of malice, not to slander, but to survive. Still, it hit me, harder than I expected. I reread the message 3 times, felt the rise of old guilt, old doubt. Elena noticed it before I spoke a word. What happened? Someone says I only told half the truth. She was quiet for a moment. Did you lie? No. Then it wasn't half, it was your half. When you grow beyond your pain, you risk being seen as above it, untouchable, clean. But I wasn't. I had been petty, angry, silent when I should have spoken, gone when I could have stayed. I hadn't written Hannah during her breakdown, hadn't asked about the child that turned out not to be Marcus's, and I didn't regret that. But I also couldn't ignore that some part of my healing was built on not going back, even if I'd left someone bleeding behind. I started writing that night. Not a reply, not a blog post, a letter. To no one, to everyone, to myself. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. This is what I know. And this is what I will never claim to understand. Instead of responding to the message, I turned the letter into a live talk. Not about Hannah, not about cheating, not about grief, about accountability after healing, about the difference between revenge and responsibility. You can rebuild yourself from ashes, but make sure, when you rise, you don't become fire to someone else. The talk went viral, and not in the way I expected. Thousands of comments, people asking real questions. Can we grow without hurting others in return? Does healing require silence from the people we outgrow? What happens when our growth makes someone else feel small? I didn't have all the answers, but I responded anyway, not to justify, but to show that the version of me that vanished after betrayal was not the same version standing now. Weeks later, a voicemail from a blocked number. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. It was a woman. Not Hannah, not someone I recognized. Hi, Nathan. You don't know me, but I'm Hannah's cousin. I wanted you to know. She used to play your voicemail at night, said it helped her sleep. You don't owe anyone anything, but I thought you deserved to know. Sometimes the voice that saves you ends up saving someone else too. I sat in the dark for a long time, and I thought, maybe that's what becoming whole really is. Not proving anything, not punishing anyone, just being so real with your truth that even the ghosts can rest. I live above a coffee shop now, not in Thailand, not in LA, somewhere in between. It's a small coastal town off the map, too slow for influencers, too real for postcards. The shop below serves espresso that doesn't need a name brand. Locals come not for speed, but for stillness. And me? I coach fewer clients now. I write. I teach workshops twice a year. I live in the kind of quiet I used to mistake for loneliness. Now I know it's freedom. Elena and I still talk. Sometimes visit. We're not together anymore, not in the romantic sense. But she helped me remember what it was like to be loved without a demand. And that's something I carry. Like a compass that always points inward. I wrote a letter. Not to Hannah, not to Marcus. Not to any of the ghosts that used to walk through my head at night. I wrote it to the man I was before all of it. Hey, I know you're hurting. I know you think you can fix her. That if you're just kind enough, patient enough, unselfish enough, she'll come back to you fully. But listen, you are not a rehab center for broken people. You are not a blank canvas for someone else's unresolved guilt. You are a whole damn novel, and one bad chapter doesn't get to rewrite your ending. I folded the letter and burned it on the beach. Not for drama, for closure. Ashes drifted over the tide like they'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Hannah never cheated, if we got married, had kids, bought a 2-bedroom condo, and pretended we were still in love. Would I have found my voice? Would I have moved abroad, met Samira, held space for broken men who didn't know how to speak their pain? Number, I would have been silent, and safe, and slowly, silently, dying. The betrayal? It was a match. It burned the life I thought I needed, but it lit the one I was meant to live. If you asked me today what I remember most about Hannah, I wouldn't say the cheating, or the lies, or the apology that came too late. I'd say she was the reason I learned to love myself like survival depended on it. I've stopped telling people I forgive her. That implies I'm still holding something. I'm not. I've simply released her. The way trees release leaves in October, not with rage, but with relief. She'll never know the man I became. She'll never sit across from the clients I've helped, never hear her name in the seminars I teach, even though she's the reason they exist. But I'll know, and that's enough.